And you already know the answer. I think the demonization of Ukraine began by Tucker Carlson, who, in my opinion, ended up where he should have been all along, which is interviewing Vladimir Putin.
When they stand up and pass a $60 billion funding bill for Ukraine, when 70% of the population doesn't want it, when they're ignoring the actual problems in our country, like the economy and the border, and they're hauling in Congress over the weekend to pass something that people don't want, while ignoring the things that people do want, and if they do the same kind of thing again and again for like 50 years, and they call it a democracy, that will drive you insane.
Demonization of Ukraine began by Tucker Carlson.
What's going on today, guys? Today we have a bonus episode. Excuse me. Usually I don't do two in one day, but I'm inspired. I almost said that. Oh my gosh. This is why I don't do two episodes in one day, but I'm inspired because Mitch McConnell is pretty much exposing himself, not that he needs to, and all the stuff that we've been talking about, but he explicitly blames Tucker Carlson, a news commentator and a television host turned podcaster and ex-poster, for the Ukraine aid bill. And I think this exposes the neocon agenda, because a lot of these people in the last couple of weeks, as we've been talking about, have been just attacking Tucker Carlson and saying, as I've covered in the last episode, watch it, I'm not going to repeat myself, but they say, he's just asking questions and Tucker's wrong about this and the nuke, and all of a sudden they have a problem with this Joe Rogan podcast. And then Mitch McConnell blows their cover by basically explaining, in my view, why everybody's really upset at Tucker Carlson. It's not because of his Joe Rogan podcast appearance. It's because of this bonus episode, emergency episode. Dreamer podcast starts now. And we're also going to expose Lindsey Graham for being a fraud and a liar. Not that he needs to be exposed. Everybody already knows it, but we'll start with that clip. Dreamer podcast starts now.
It's the Dream Rare Podcast. Welcome to the show. The way to get the news at the desk or on the road. Let's go. God is great and success in our control. The world is crazy, but we get better from obstacles. Yeah.
What's going on, everybody? Appreciate you for being here. So let's go. Yeah, we're live again. And I want to show you this clip real quick because this was brought to my attention. I want to give credit real quick. Hold on. Let me see who I saw this from. And I chopped it up a little shorter. His name is Greg Foreman on Twitter. I like his tweets. I gave him a follow a couple weeks ago or a couple months ago. Here's a video of Lindsey Graham explicitly saying he would never give a single dime of aid until we got our border. They just did that. And these people like Mitch McConnell, Lindsey Graham, and others are going to try to gaslight us into being like, oh, you're just Putin. Oh, it's just Tucker. Listen to what he says here. I played it twice so you can really take it in.
The only thing that works with bad guys is to be strong. Our border is broken. Our policies don't work. It's a matter of time till a bunch of Americans get killed. I will not vote for one dime for any country, including Israel, until we first secure our own border. The only thing that works with bad guys is to be strong. Our border is broken. Our policies don't work. It's a matter of time till a bunch of Americans get killed. I will not vote for one dime for any country, including Israel, until we first secure our own border.
You could just see the lack of soul in his eyes. They say eyes are the window to a soul. Lindsey Graham has none. But anyway, I'm going to quote him. Our border is broken. Our policies don't work. It's a matter of time before a bunch of Americans get killed. I will not vote for one dime for any country, including Israel, until we first secure our own border. That's what he said. What has changed? Our border's still broken. Our policies still don't work. It's only a matter of time before a bunch of Americans get killed, said Lindsey. He's not going to vote one dime for any country until we secure our border. Yet he did. Yet they all did. Anyway, let's listen to Mitch McConnell real quick. This is really why I wanted to do the show, and I have a few other things I want to say. But Mitch McConnell blames Tucker Carlson for blowing up the Ukraine aid package, for a few months. I guess he's saying that Tucker has convinced certain Republicans that it was a bad idea. And isn't it interesting that we were just talking about this before I even saw this clip? Isn't it interesting that Seth Dillon and Ben Shapiro and a lot of these other, oh, it's really just about World War II and nuclear bombs and Tucker, blah, 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 blah. Is it though? Sorry, I should have leveled my desk out. It's shaking like crazy, but Or is it about this, what Mitch McConnell says?
You've been probably one of the most ardent backers of Ukraine in the Senate here, but what took so long to get some of these other 8 Republicans persuaded to your position there? Was it the overall nature of this bill and what was lost in that time period for Ukraine?
Well, that's a good question. You already know the answer. I think the demonization of Ukraine began by Tucker Carlson, who, in my opinion, ended up where he should have been all along, which is interviewing Vladimir Putin. And so he had an enormous audience, which convinced a lot of rank-and-file Republicans that maybe this was a mistake. I think the former president had sort of mixed views on it. We all felt that the border was a complete disaster, myself included. And Chad, you remember covering the phases we went through. First, there was an effort to make law, which requires you to deal with Democrats. And then a number of our members thought it wasn't good enough. And then our nominee for president didn't seem to want us to do anything at all. That took months to work our way through it. So we ended up doing the supplemental that was originally proposed, which dealt with not all problems. It didn't solve the border problem, but certainly addressed the growing threats at the moment.
Isn't it weird that Mitch McConnell is blaming Tucker Carlson? And listen, I'm not asking people to love everything Tucker Carlson says, okay? Don't get it twisted. I'm not asking you to be like, oh, I trust everything he's ever done and said, and that's not what I'm saying. It's just Tucker Carlson is the biggest voice that is skeptical of foreign aid, and he's one of the most popular people in the Republican Party. And mysteriously, after a massive Joe Rogan podcast, which is one of the biggest podcasts in the world, all of these conservative influencers are just coming out of the gate being like, oh man, he's not American because he questions things like 9/11, which he barely questions. And also Tucker used to shame people for questioning it. And recently he's admitted that now he's in a process of questioning more things because he used to be like a total normie, believe everything. But now that he realizes how much is a lie, Tucker basically apologizes to people that he shamed that were asking certain questions. So we know what it's about, but it's just, this is the interesting part about this year is people that have been super, super sneaky, they're not sneaky anymore, right? Mitch McConnell is obvious controlled opposition. Everybody knows that. Everybody. Nobody's like apparently, I guess the people who vote for him in Kentucky must think he's like the real deal, but the rest of the country, probably 90% of conservatives, maybe I'm overestimating, maybe the boomers still fall for him, but I think the new Trump movement and the new conservative movement, they all know Mitch McConnell's not that great. But other people that have been more successful at pretending to not be like Mitch McConnell, all of a sudden in the last couple months, they're just like outwardly showing you who they are. And it's weird and nobody believes it, but I guess some people do believe it. I'm not really sure. There's a little bit of a culture war going on. I talked about it in my last stream. If you want to watch my full show for today, this is a bonus episode. I want to figure out how to stop. Sorry. I'm shaking my desk every time I move. I don't know why. It normally doesn't do that, I don't think, but whatever. It's like you don't even have to do that much. You just speak the truth and then everything starts connecting. All the dots start connecting. Like I do an episode earlier about why are they so mad at Tucker now? Like of all the things Tucker said and done, like what now is making, and then Mitch McConnell just comes out and blames him for the reason that Republicans didn't want to push the Ukraine aid. It's fascinating stuff. I'm going to play this clip of Lindsey Graham again. I know there's a couple hundred more people that joined after I played it. But just listen to this stuff. And these are the type of people, the Lindsey Grahams, the Mitch McConnells, and even the Shapiros in the media world that are going to try to gaslight us on all these topics. You don't even need to do it. Like, I didn't say this. Lindsey Graham said this, and he broke his own promise. Like, is anybody going to call him out on this? Like on mainstream media, are they going to say you said this and did this? Like, they do this stuff all the time, and then they'll be like, look at the left, and then people forget about it. But listen to what he says here. I didn't even know he would ever say this because I know he didn't mean it. But he really did say this, and it's worth listening again real quick.
The only thing that works with bad guys is to be strong. Our border is broken. Our policies don't work. It's a matter of time till a bunch of Americans get killed. I will not vote for one dime for any country, including Israel, until we first secure our own border. The only thing that works with bad guys is to be strong. Our border is broken. Our policies don't work. It's a matter of time till a bunch of Americans get killed. I will not vote for one dime for any country, including Israel, until we first secure our own border.
Let's check the list. Oh, what do you know? Senator Lindsey Graham did actually vote for it with no border money. So that was a lie. I'm going to hang out for probably 15 or so minutes before I keep it. I want to keep this one under 30 minutes, but I want to show you something real quick because it's like this stem of like, okay, Lindsey Graham obviously lied to us. Mitch McConnell, everyone knows who he is at this point, except for the people who keep voting him in. I talked about Ben Shapiro and Seth Dillon and Jeremy Boring earlier, talking about how they're trying to smear Tucker Carlson mysteriously at the same time that Mitch McConnell is. Whatever. I'm not saying correlation is causation, but it's a little weird. But this is what I want people to know, because now I'm watching Matt Walsh, who is my favorite person still at the Daily Wire. Him and Candace I liked both for different reasons, and I like them, I wouldn't say equally, but there's things I like about both of them, and everyone else I never really cared about, to be honest. But Matt's almost acting like he's like a dog on a leash for Daily Wire. Like Jeremy came out and basically dissed Tucker Carlson the other day. And Matt's like, it's nuanced, but dropping nukes is, and it's like, we know you're just doing this to defend your company. It's whatever, or your friends. It's a nice thing to do. Maybe you really agree with that. But here's how I know that Matt, as honest as Matt Walsh is, and I don't want people to hate me or be mad, because I still like Matt. I still think he's a good guy, but it's just like, I know he's lying. He knows that we know that he's lying, but he just keeps lying. And it's like, why are you doing this, Matt? You're not tricking anybody. You're getting ratioed on Twitter every day now. Like, why are you doing this? I want to show you what he said today and then what he used to write in his articles, which is the exact opposite of what he's saying now. He's playing the role of gatekeeper, which he used to write articles making fun of Republicans who are doing what he's doing now. And we caught him slipping again. Matt Walsh, God bless you, buddy. But let's talk about it. Let's look at the tweet first, and then let's look what he wrote in his blog post. He knows. Like, I know he knows. Everyone knows he knows. Just stop, dude. All right, so here's what he wrote, and then we'll take it from there. So Matt Walsh, he responded to a Cernovich tweet. Cernovich said, "You think the Columbia stuff is anti-Semitism and not the outgrowth of anti-white hatred, then you are so lost, it's not even possible to have a conversation." Matt Walsh said, "This is exactly right. The left sides with Hamas because it is the less white group, and they see the struggle as one of the brown victims being persecuted by white Western colonists. It's an all anti-white racism dressed up as a slightly different garb. These are BLM activists. These are all BLM activists." Here's the thing. Before I read the second part that I disagree with, I actually agree with Mike Cernovich. I agree with Matt Walsh. Those statements I agree with. I do agree that they see them as less white, and just because they wear they're, the less white people and the other white people, and they're wearing pharmaceutical masks, and it's a lot of the BLM, I don't agree with what they're doing or why they're doing it necessarily, but it's not just like Romney versus Obama. So I just want to make this clear, because a lot of people read that and be like, I do actually think that's true. So do I. And I'm not saying every left-wing activist, but I do generally think that's why they're siding with Palestine, right? I don't disagree with any of that. Here's the part I disagree with, and I know that Matt knows what he's doing. It's very sneaky. Matt, stop being sneaky. So he follows up that true tweet or good tweet with those on the right siding with these people are finding common cause with people who hate them and despise everything that they stand for. So I understand what he's saying, but he's like, those on the right siding with these people are finding common cause with people who hate them and despise everything they stand for. To be honest, I'm not even necessarily saying that he's lying there, because it is true. If you find commonality with someone that hates you on other stuff, they still hate you. And I don't disagree, to be honest, after reading it. But here's the thing. He's trying to basically paint it as I could say the same thing to him. Matt, you're siding with a bunch of people who hate Christ. You're siding, and not everybody, but some, you're siding with people who hate the people that you're defending just as much as the people that you're looking at. And this is just what I want to point out. because he'll call it that way, right? Which is fair, but he'll never call it the other way. He's trying to paint like, how could you side with those people? Those people really, you're finding common cause with people who are against you. It's like Romney versus Obama and being like, oh, you're going to vote for Obama. You're finding common cause with them. And then they say, oh, well, you're going to vote with Romney. You're finding common cause. There's only two sides of this argument that's in the mainstream. And it doesn't mean when it's like college campus liberals and then Zionists arguing with them, it doesn't mean if you side with one of the sides that you have to agree with everything they're doing or whatever. But I just want to show you, because Matt wrote a really great article before he was at Daily Wire, something that I doubt he'd ever say again, because he'd probably get Candace Owens if he made this the point. But I just want to read, because it's a great article. Matt's a really smart guy, great writer. He knows the false paradigm on this exact topic, and he knows how disingenuous it is to try to group you in with BLM activists just because you slightly agree with them on one topic for different reasons. Matt wrote in his blog post, he wrote, it makes zero sense for United States citizens to be ideologues when it comes to Israel. I'm not for or against them. I don't get into this mindless game of developing a quote unquote position on an entire country. What's next? Are we going to kill each other to defend the honor of our favorite color? It's hard enough dealing with our own corrupt government. It's almost impossible to do it on an international scale, because that's what we're talking about, by the way. When you say, I support Israel, you're saying, I support the Israeli government. You might claim you support their people and not their government, but the $3 billion a year, the diplomatic favors, the military assistance, all goes to their government. How could so many conservatives who are rightfully skeptical of our government have such a childish love for a foreign government? I don't support the Israeli government. I don't support our government. And that's not because I'm anti this or pro that. It's simply because I'm paying attention. That's Matt Walsh who wrote that blog post, okay? He wrote it before he works at Daily Wire, who Candace Owens for talking about Israel and Jewish stuff that they didn't really want to talk about. And I know, because I just read that article, as everyone does, if you're being honest, Matt knows this little fake, and I want to show the tweet again, because I'm not necessarily saying he's lying. He's just being sneaky. Those on the right siding with these people are finding common cause with people who hate them and everything and despise everything they stand for. He's playing the exact game that he complained about when he wrote that blog post, where it's like, if you say, for example, and it's not 3 billion now, it's like 20 billion, and it's going to be billions. We're just billions. Everybody take our money and say it's hateful if we talk about it. It's like, if you say, you know what, I don't know about supporting multiple foreign wars, seems like a bad idea. And it's like, oh, are you siding with the Hamas BLM? No. Oh, you're on their side and they hate you. Well, Matt, you're also siding with people who hate you. I'm not saying everyone on your side hates you, and I'm not saying everyone on the other side hates me. But just like he's saying that about people siding with that, he wrote an entire article basically saying the opposite, explaining why, as a conservative, if he doesn't worship the Israeli government, or he doesn't want to give them foreign aid, or he has any sort of skeptical of where it's going, that people try to throw you in that category of leftist, or they try to throw, and he said, it's ridiculous. It's childish. He wrote that. He knows it. I know he knows it. He knows that I know that he knows it. Everyone knows. He gets ratioed every time he says it, but he keeps doing it. And it's sad, because Matt Walsh is a very brave man, but he's acting like a neutered dog on a leash, and everyone's watching him act like a neutered dog on the leash. He's put his life on the line to talk about the trans agenda. He's put his life on the line to expose the left, and all of those things just to act like a neutered dog on the leash for the topic that his bosses, have a certain line that he knows if he ever crossed, that he'd probably have a harder time working there, And when they tweet these things, when Jeremy tweets, you don't like America if you don't think the atomic bomb, whatever I don't remember the exact tweet. It was basically like, if you question George Bush and 9/11, if you question the moon landing, and you don't think that, if you think it was a bad idea to drop a nuclear bomb on Japan, then you hate our country, you don't love our country. Is that like a veiled way of Jeremy saying the same? Like, everybody knows at Daily Wire, like Candace Owens got Candace Owens, and he admitted in a space that there's a certain line that he has on Israel that he just doesn't want people to cross. He said, if you think it's a genocide in Palestine, then I don't really want you working here, is what he said in the space. And here's the thing. What if it turns into that? What it, like, if America does something, or Israel, what if they killed 100,000 people, 500,000? Is that still your line, or does your line change based on the observation? I don't really know. But in general, when he says nuclear bomb dropped on Japan is a good thing. Moon landing was real, and don't question George Bush and 9/11. Is that him doing a veiled to every employee, like, hey, if you disagree with me on this topic, you might get Candace Owens. That's our line. Because saying you hate the country if you say the other thing is a pretty bold statement. So it's like, like I said with that article, Matt Walsh knows more than he's leading on. But when you have a boss who Candace Owens tweets out that you hate the country if you disagree with the moon landing, which Matt mysteriously makes videos about, I don't care. That I don't think there's never a time I would say Matt Walsh doesn't love the country because he thinks the moon landing was real. And if someone is a patriot like Candace and she's skeptical of it, it doesn't mean she hates the country just because she questions the moon. Like, that's such a ridiculous thing to say. But when you're the boss or the god king of a company and you tweet these things after we saw what just happened with Candace, it seems almost like he's telling all his employees, like, that's our line too, possibly. Do you want to go there? And it's like, I guess not. But I'll read a few comments, and I'm not going to stay too long. Maybe I'll go 35 minutes. I just wanted to point it out because to me, it's a multi-layered thing, right? You have Mitch McConnell, who's Mitch McConnell. Everybody knows who Mitch McConnell is except for the people who vote for him. You have Lindsey Graham, who's Lindsey Graham. Everybody knows Lindsey Graham sucks, yet Donald Trump still puts him on stage multiple times a year and gatekeeps and tries to get him elected. Why wouldn't Donald Trump use his power to get somebody better in South Carolina? Because that's just what the Republican Party does. They're professional losers and actors, and they put on little galas and balls and rallies, and nothing changes. Okay, whatever. But then you have this other layer, which is why I made this video on top of the other one. I already made my case for why I thought so many people were going after Tucker Carlson, because he has this specific questioning ability where he doesn't want to give Israel and Ukraine unlimited amounts of foreign aid. And there's certain people in the Republican Party, either they want Ukraine to get as much foreign aid as they want, or they just want Israel to get as much foreign aid as they want. And everybody knows in Republican media, if you don't say, I want Israel to get as much foreign aid as they want, they'll call you anti-Semitic, they'll blacklist you, and they'll make sure that you don't get a job so they can give a job to somebody else who will say that Israel needs all the foreign aid that they want. Matt Walsh used to write about it, but he doesn't talk about it anymore because he works at a company that is intolerant to, that opinion, or will say they're not intolerant to that opinion, but I believe that they are. Okay. With that being said, it's just layers. It's like the politicians do that. The media makes dumb, like fake proxy wars about it. And then somebody like a Matt Walsh who knows better, is like a neutered dog on a leash. He jumps out and says, bark, 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 to try to defend his bosses who are making terrible, terrible arguments. I've invited Seth Dillon on the show. Seth Dillon from Babylon Bee. He responded to me and he's like, I'm not demonizing asking questions. You kind of were though, bro. But I know that he doesn't actually think that. I know that Ben Shapiro said something and they all just want to defend Ben Shapiro, but they would have never said that if Ben didn't say that, because it's a stupid thing to say, oh, I'm just asking questions. So Seth responded to me and he goes, oh, I wasn't demonizing just asking questions. Then what were you doing, bro? Because you're getting mad at just asking questions and then saying vaguely that you're not really doing that. Like, no one even knows what you're doing. So, like, come on the show and let's chat about it. What are you doing? Sorry if there's someone spamming in the chat. I don't know what to tell you. Just ignore it or something. Oh, that's the guy who always spams. He says that Anomaly is afraid of Dana White. I've literally, if anybody watches my show, I talked about Dana White like literally 2 streams ago, and I said that what he was doing was treating Republicans like cattle. I literally said that like 2 streams ago. Anybody that watches, you understand? Like, I literally just said, I think Dana White's treating Republicans like literal cattle. So not only am I not afraid to say what I think about that, I literally already said it this week. Let me see. I'm going to read a few. I'm going to stay for like 10 minutes. I want to keep this definitely under 40 minutes. But yeah, and if you want to watch where I went in on the Dana White thing, it's literally the Ukraine video. I just did it this week. Kevin said, Tucker was literally wrong about every aspect of Ukraine. His coverage has shaped a lot of right-wing opinions. You perceive that he's wrong, but I don't believe he was wrong. I mean, it comes down to this. Either you think that the American, and maybe there's some like sneaky banker thing that they're doing, keeping the petrodollar afloat. That's possible, but then just say that. Don't do all these other things. Like, do you think Ukraine is massively benefiting from the war? Do you think Zelensky really likes Ukrainians, that he's fighting for their freedom? I mean, I don't believe that at all. But to each their own. If you want to believe that Tucker's wrong about that, then it is what it is. Let me see. Two streams today? Yeah, I was in the mood. I want to read some good questions though, because the last ones I've been trying to keep them shorter because I think it's easier to share and watch, and I'll do longer ones later. But I just thought it was so fascinating that Mitch McConnell himself named Tucker Carlson. Like, that tells you everything you need to know, because it's one of these things with journalism. If you're doing journalism that they don't want you to do, it's helping people see the side of the argument that they don't want you to see. So by Tucker talking to Putin, it showed you that narrative. I figured this out when the war started. I listened to Putin's first speech. I listened to Zelensky's first speech. I did a video on it. I said, listen, I have no dog in this race. I'm not Ukrainian. I'm not Russian. I don't have any bias at all towards either. None. So then I watched Putin talk, and then I watched Zelensky talk. And it's like watching a conservative and a liberal talk. It's like the liberal, not always, but it's like all platitudes and just like Martin Luther King, and just like it didn't like there was no substance to what Zelensky was saying. It was all just like performative. With Putin, it was more substantive. Doesn't mean he's right necessarily, but I was wildly underwhelmed with Zelensky's speech. It just seemed like like he was accepting an award at the Oscars. Like, I'm Martin Luther King, this and that, blah, blah, blah. It's like, but where's the meat of the argument? There was no meat of the argument. Putin, he brings it back like 100 years and explains like his exact thought process of what they're doing, what he's doing, why he's doing it, where they came from. It's hard not like, that's why they don't want people to listen to Putin. That's why McConnell is so mad. But this is, they're playing a different game of deception and all these sort of things. I think that's what journalism's supposed to be, is just like letting people see both sides and then making an opinion. But it's probably been 50, 60 years of subversion and all that other stuff. So I don't think they're not playing that game anymore. It's like, how dare Tucker show the other side? There's a lot of topics like that. I would say even with Zionism, a lot of Christians support Zionism, but there is a counter documentary that is banned probably, or it was banned on YouTube, but I think they put it back up. It's called Marching to Zion. I'm not saying you have to like Pastor Steven Anderson. A lot of people think he's crazy. He's got a bunch of wild interviews or whatever. Some people think he's mean or psychotic. I mean, he gets a lot of hate, but all I'm just going to say is, like, as a Christian, I've heard the pro-Zionist side 1,000 times. I watched that documentary probably like 5 years ago or something. And it's just interesting because it shows the other side that nobody's ever heard before. It's like, if you hear for your whole life how bad Putin is, and then you listen to a Putin interview, it doesn't mean that you're pro-Putin or you even have to agree with what he says. But by hearing that side and hearing that side, then you can have an informed opinion on what you really think versus just only hearing one side all the time. And it's interesting when you show people certain things, they don't really always have much to say. Sometimes they do, but you understand what I'm saying? This is the type of person I've been, and this is how I know a lot. It's not just because I listen to Tucker Carlson and believe what he says or listen to a Putin interview. I've listened to Zelensky interviews way more than Putin interviews when it first came out. That's why they only show you one side of the equation. And that's why I think Mitch McConnell is so upset. Someone said, I wonder what it will take for America to finally close the border. I don't know for sure, but I would say that my best guess is that Trump will get in, and it seems like everybody wants to declare war on Mexico and the cartels. And, Trump will probably be the one to do that. There's going to be a new president. You should look her up. I think she's going to win the presidency of the of Mexico. It's interesting if you look into it. I'll just say that. And then, if Trump wins, I've heard Trump, Dan Crenshaw, Marjorie Taylor Greene, Vivek Ramaswamy, all of them, literally every Republican from Dan Crenshaw, who's supposed to be so much more war hawky than Trump, to even Marjorie Taylor Greene, to even Vivek, they all say they want to designate the cartel as a terrorist organization and then fight them in Mexico. I think it's insane. I think if you're treating them like a terrorist group in America, I feel like that's understandable. But to go and start a war in Mexico seems a little crazy to me, especially since the entire Mexican government's kind of intertwined with that. It's like trying to stop a different country. Like I don't think it's a good idea personally, but they seem pretty dead set on doing that. And I think that, if Trump wins, they'll close the border-ish. I don't know that they're going to be able to deport everybody, but it seems like the Uniparty wants to like wage war on Mexico or something, or wage war on the cartels and like call them a terrorist organization and go there. So, I mean, I think they use, and I might be wrong, but I feel like they use politicians, like, you need George Bush for this, you need Obama for this, you needed Trump to do Operation Warp Speed in the lockdown to get conservatives feeling good. You need Joe Biden to do Ukraine. Trump will come in and do more for Israel and probably do the Mexico thing. We'll see, but that's kind of my read. But maybe he loses the election. I don't know. Someone said I see riots incoming. I mean, the left wingers are definitely crazy, but this is the thing I'm trying to say too, is like, I'm not siding with left wing like, it's not, my whole life isn't like left and right, or they did that. Well, it's either Ben Shapiro or Hamas protesters. I don't live in that reality. I don't pick one side or the other, because it's not a two-sided equation. I'm not siding with someone wearing a pharmaceutical mask. And, they are, like Matt Walsh said, they are a lot of the BLM activists rebranded. So the possibility of them doing something crazy is not zero, because it's probably a lot of the same people. And we already saw what they were willing to do during 2020. That much I agree with. And I'm not on their side. It's just like, that doesn't mean that Dan Crenshaw's on my side. Like, that's like childish. But Niall said with a $5 super chat, Hegelian dialectic, both sides moving against the common man, one as the hero, other as the enemy, same as G. Edwards said years ago. Absolutely. Absolutely. Someone said, why is anyone who's against the genocide deemed as a Hamas supporter? Well, the framing of everything, like, everyone frames it how they want. Like, certain people will call it a genocide, certain people won't. Certain people will say you're Hamas, others won't. It's like calling Bernie and Trump supporters pro-Putin. The reason they called Bernie supporters and Trump supporters Putin puppets is because they wanted, and they were starting a soft war against Russia before Trump even got in office. Lindsey Graham was flying over to Ukraine. They were giving, I believe Trump gave them weapons when he was in office. They've been doing this before that. So the second that someone gets in like a Trump, one of two options is possible. Either they didn't want Trump to get in, and he's a little bit more iffy because he's not a lifelong politician. That's what most people think. It's very possible. Or, it's just like they use people to trap people. So it's like, whether Trump wins or not, and even if they had him completely controlled, I'm not saying they do, they might, he's a little more of a wild card, but say Trump was completely controlled, it's still like you get justification. Oh, Trump won, and there's all these dissidents to Hillary. Well, let's classify them and target them. And then now we know who's going to be against the war in Russia, which we're going to start in 4 years, or we want to start now, but Trump won't do it right now. It's a possibility. It's like with everything they do, and I'm not saying that everything's planned, although you have to be honest with yourself and realize that there have been false flags in history. You could look up quite a few of them that are well documented, and everybody thinks they're false flags. But with that being said, even if something's not a false flag and it's real, there's a lot of real tragedies that happen every day. Everyone knows that a tragedy leads to a solution. Well, this happened, so now we need vaccines. Well, this happened, so now we need to take away your guns. Well, this happened. Well, now we got to give $20 billion to this country. And you don't think that they don't know that? Like, for example, if there is no Ukraine war, we don't have to give $100 billion to Ukraine. You think politicians who've been in Washington for 40 years don't know that? If there is no tragedy here, then they can't justify doing a counterattack and then get $30 billion in aid. Everyone knows this. It's just the big secret is like they just call it a conspiracy theory. And I'm not saying everything's fake. It's like there are real events, but everybody knows that even a real event can lead to hundreds of billions of dollars. Like you know how long and how much production you have to do to make $100 billion? So much that even most billionaires in the world, because I mean, think about it. I haven't even thought about this, to be honest, which is crazy because it's a simple thought, but sometimes we're running in circles. What is Elon Musk's net worth? Think about this for a second, guys. This is crazy. Let's see. Elon Musk net worth. Elon Musk's net worth is $179 billion. So that means over time, let's just say we gave Ukraine $200 billion when it's all said and done. If we haven't already, we might have already done it. We've given more than the net worth of one of the richest people, if not the richest person in the world, to another country. I think, I don't know how many billionaires there are, but let's just say we give 20 or 30 billion to Israel and 40 to 60 billion to Ukraine, or 40 to 70 billion. That's most than most people have made in their entire lifetime running the most successful and productive companies in modern history. And we're giving it to them in a day. You think there's not going to be propaganda around topics like these? You think there's not going to be, blame Tucker Carlson for this? You think there's not going to be, you know what I'm saying? It's like, there's a reason they hate people who talk against aid. It's because it's like the easiest way to make money. You'd have to make 10 companies and get 10,000 employees to make $20 billion if you're lucky, even then. But then they can do it in a second if they lobby politicians or create a media narrative. And I'm trying to be compassionate when I speak now. I've been a little harsh recently, but it's like people's brains are so scrambled because there's so much money in making people left-wing. There's so much money in controlling the opposition. Like there's hundreds of billions of trillions of dollars going in circles where they don't want people to be able to think. So you got 10 different people trying to fight for your brain. It's exhausting. You know what I'm saying? I feel bad for a lot of people that are being tricked, but at the same time, it's like when they lash out at you, it's like a sheep attacking you. You're like, get off me. It's like a natural response to say stop. But it's like there's so much crazy stuff going around because there's so much money going around. It's like most people don't think of it that way. It's like we're going to give as much money to Ukraine as every billionaire except for like 2 or 3 possibly have to one country. It's so nuts. But the sad part is they're just not fixing our country. That's the real tragedy. If we were doing all this stuff, but America was crushing, it would suck still, but it would be less sucky. We'd be like, yeah, that sucks, but that's why people believed it in the 2000s, because America was still pretty awesome. So people believed that we were really doing all these things we weren't doing. Not all of it is money laundering. Not all of it is like, but some $0 is not laundered, or $0 is not circling money. Like and that's what, as Matt Walsh wrote in his article, that's what foreign aid is. It's like you're giving the money to another government. You don't trust America's government, but you want to give $60 billion to Ukraine. You don't trust America's government, but you're going to give 20, 30, 40, 50 to Israel, and then call everybody anti-Semitic who disagrees, or conspiracy theorists, or pro-Putin. It's a $1 trillion industry. It's just such a disappointment when our country's kind of going in the pooper. I'll answer a few more questions. I really want to, I'm definitely going to keep this under an hour. I'm definitely going to try to keep it under 50 minutes, but I do want to just kind of hear some feedback. And then, what are my thoughts on Trey Gowdy? I could care less about the guy. I think he's a phony, but I know some people like him or whatever, but at this point, I'll put it this way. If I haven't complimented somebody, there's a reason they're not on my radar. So from what I've heard from Trey Gowdy, he's just another, he's another like fake Republican pretending to be like pro-Trump America or whatever, but he's not really the real deal, in my opinion. Someone said all yap, no action. Yeah, you watch these people enough and you realize it's just like a circus act. I don't trust them. I don't believe them. I've heard a few things from them where I'm just shaking my head. Someone said they print money and steal ours. Yeah, that's what's going on for sure. I just did this video because I've talked about it a lot. I just thought it was so interesting that Mitch McConnell named Tucker Carlson And that's what they're doing. It's like with Trump, when they're going after Trump in 2017, and you're like, we got to hold the line because they're just using Trump as a symbol. As soon as, and it's the same thing with the court cases now. I don't cover it because I know everybody and their mom is covering it, but it's like the court cases on Trump are insane. I'm sure the jury's going to be rigged. It's ridiculous. You know what I'm saying? It sucks that they're doing it, because as soon as they're done doing it to Trump or Tucker Carlson, then they do it to Candace, and then they do, and the craziest thing about the Candace Owens court case is I believe those hate speech libel laws that they've passed through government for one race, one religion, and one country, those are going to come up in the court case to be used, or, at a certain point, this is my guess. And maybe I'm wrong, because there's been discrimination in the workplace for so long, just reverse racism or whatever people want to call it, and nobody seems to care. Like the courts don't seem to care, but it's hard for me to believe that some of these things could stand up to a Supreme Court. Like, they're totally against the First Amendment. You can't pass like a hate speech law for one race, one religion, one country. Like that, how is that going to stand up in court? But who knows? Someone said her court case. Well, yeah, I believe she's getting sued for one of the people that she was talking about on her show. I believe they're suing her. Not the Daily Wire, but one of the rabbis, I think, is suing her. I'm not really following up on it. I haven't read on it, but I did see a video of a person saying that they were going to sue her for, I don't know if it was liking a tweet or saying something anti-Semitic, or, I'm not really sure, but I'm pretty, these are the games that we're playing. And you guys could look, if you care enough, you could look it up and get even more accurate information than I'm saying. But to me, after the lockdown, I just don't, it's not that I don't care, because the last thing I want to do is argue with people on Twitter and argue and talk shit. I really don't. But at the same time, it's like, dude, this is the most annoying thing to me out of anything, is when I'm trying to like really go out on a limb and say something really honest that might not be popular, it might be popular, but it's like really important. It's like if we know Lindsey Graham is controlled opposition, but our favorite people are literally working with them, taking money, passing speech laws, doing all this subversive stuff that's going to guarantee that we never win. I'm calling it out because I don't know what else to do. Like, what are we supposed to lie to ourselves and just keep losing and hitting our head on the door and saying that it's the left? So I go out and I say it because it's real and it's brave and I feel like it's helpful. And the most annoying part to me, I'm getting to it, sorry for dragging this out, is when grown men, not all the time boomers, but a lot of times, they get more mad at me than they do at the people who are scamming them. It's the craziest phenomenon ever. If I go out, I use this as an example because it's so easy. Trump took $1 million from Pfizer. If I took $1 million from Pfizer, my career's over. I'm a sellout. Everybody rightfully shuns me, shames me. They say Anomaly's a scammer. He's a flip-flopper. He took money and then he sold us out. But when Donald Trump does it, you have more men getting mad that I'm pointing it out. Like, they're not mad that their leader is taking money from the pharmaceutical industry to sell them out. They're mad that I pointed it out. So why should I talk about the left all day when Republicans gatekeep their own failure? They get more energetic about you pointing it out than they do about other people. Me, you point out that my favorite politician took $1 million from a pharmaceutical industry or hundreds of millions of dollars from donors, and that's why things are going in the shitter. I'm going to be like, thank you for telling me, man. Thank you. Now I know. But they get mad that I pointed out. And then I get frustrated and I start talking big trash because it's like, stop, dude. Especially when it's someone like 50, 60. It's like, bro, you already don't know what's going on. That's why everything's the way it is. You have this high trust for people that are scamming you. You have no discernment. Okay. So the least you could do is just leave me alone when I'm doing what you lack the courage or self-awareness or discernment to do. Why would you jump on my back and try to take me down for pointing out things that you can't figure out? It's like, this is why we lose. It's not just because of the left. It's because the right spends more energy dragging people down, calling out this sort of stuff. And when it comes to Matt Walsh, people will say, oh, this one guy, unfortunately blocked him, but he's like, why are you spending so much time talking about Matt Walsh? Why don't you do something productive or talk about this? You want to talk about productivity? I don't have the most money. I don't have the biggest reach in the world, but there's a lot of leverage right now. And because I've been commenting on Matt Walsh's Twitter, he's been actually covering these topics. Republicans are passing hate speech laws against the First Amendment. Matt Walsh hasn't talked about it in 5, 6, 7 years. He finally talked about it because people are pointing it out on Twitter. With Seth Dillon and all these things, he's invited on the show. I don't want to hear, like, these people are not shaming Tucker Carlson because he has a bad opinion about nuclear bombs 60 years ago. They're shaming Tucker Carlson because he's fundamentally different than they are. He believes America First is not giving hundreds of billions of dollars to other countries. They believe America First is giving tens of billions of dollars to other countries. Maybe not that country, but that country. That's why they're mad at him. And that's the same reason that Mitch McConnell's saying that. So it's like, I know the game these people are playing. And a lot of people don't know the game they're playing. That's fine. But the least you could do is just leave me alone when I point it out. When I point stuff out, if I'm wrong or inaccurate, say I'm wrong or inaccurate. If you can't figure out why I'm wrong or inaccurate, then stay out of my way. You know what I'm saying? Like, there is no win for me following these losers. It doesn't work that way. You know, like, look what happened during COVID. This is another, I might stay longer now because I'm in the zone, but if I do, it's whatever. It's one video. I already have another shorter video. In general, when it came to COVID, it's like a psychology test. I'm sorry, I don't want to hear that Jordan Peterson's the #1 psychologist in the world when he failed the #1 psychology test in modern history that millions of people did. If a plumber with no college degree could see through COVID and Jordan Peterson can't, guess what? That plumber is a better psychologist than Jordan Peterson. Just because you study Nietzsche and a bunch of like old philosophers and psychologists and just regurgitate what like smarter men said 100 years ago, it doesn't make you smart. You understand? So I don't believe that these people are the top of their game. But anyway, COVID was a test. I believe it was like a data test of like, how many people will comply? What will this person do? What will that person do? And in general, most people listened, even on the right. So this is just my theory, but I don't care if people disagree because I don't care about it enough to care. But all this stuff they're doing under Biden, where it's like, why is the border wide open? Why is it? It's like, because they know that the opposition's controlled. So once you realize that men are so weak and pathetic, not just the liberals, but 80% of Republican men will cry when someone points out that Trump sold the vaccine. Like, that's what a bunch of these beta male Republican, like, they're like, oh, why are you pointing this out? The elites just look at all these pathetic people and they say, open the floodgates, open the borders. They're stupid. They're dumb. The opposition's controlled. These people spend more energy crying when people point out stuff in their party than they do actually opposing the terrible stuff. It's like, once you have the raw data, this is what businessmen do. This is how Facebook and all these companies make billions of dollars. They make it off your data. They sell your data. They sell it to advertisers. And then you're getting advertisements for things that you don't even know how, because they're just sucking in all your information and making like supercomputer algorithmic decisions that you don't even know. You don't think that the politicians can do this? It's like, they have the data that people aren't going to do anything. And I'm not talking about like what Tim Pool's yelling about in Civil War. You don't need to do that. It's simple non-compliance. The vaccine, literally just standing in place, would have done more than yelling and getting set up in the streets by feds. Like, you don't have to do anything. You shouldn't do anything. It's probably going to be a setup. It's probably going to be a trap. The revolution's mental. Like, imagine you got all these people screaming, Civil War, Fauci, blah, blah, blah. It's like 70-something% of people took the vaccine. I'm not shaming anybody. I rarely talk about it anymore. And God bless you. And, I'm not shaming anybody, but it's a compliance test. If 70-something% of the country does something, now it's easier to mandate it. The real way to fight the mandates was not to get the vaccine. Republicans were telling you to get the vaccine, but don't listen to the mandates, or get the vaccine, but we don't want the mandates to stick. Well, they're going to stick for longer if everybody listens. And I believe the only reason the mandates fell apart is because they did such a desperate job to get the vaccine in everybody that nobody wanted the boosters for 20 years to come. So they did short-term business and made a bunch of money at the expense of long-term business, because I believe the plan was for you to get one every year. But because they pushed it so hard down your throat, only 20% or 30% wanted to get the next one, and the next one was even less. And now they can't last mandates forever, because how are they going to tell you that you need to go get a new vaccine every 6 months or every year, yet the mandates stick even if you got 2 vaccines? The only way they could mandate it is if everyone keeps getting the boosters, because they can't on one hand tell you that you need a new one and then say the old one works for a vaccine passport. They did it for a year and it made no sense. You're like, I only had 2 vaccines, but I could get in the Coachella 2 years later and they have 5 vaccines. So that's why it fell apart. They did short-term business, they rushed it through, and they didn't have the compliance numbers. So the way to stop this stuff is non-compliance. It's peaceful, it's easy. Just stop doing it. It's the same thing with politics. I'm not preaching like some sort of crazy revolution. I'm preaching mental revolution, spiritual revolution. Just say no. Point these things out. If you point these things out, they're going to stop. But this is what annoys me the most. It's like you got these grown conservative men, they get more mad that I'm pointing it out. Like, not only did they not do anything and not point it out, but they get mad when I point it out. They're like, why are you getting mad at Matt Walsh? I'm not mad at Matt Walsh. I just know he knows what he's doing, and it's cringe. And it's like, dude, this is crunch time for America. I understand the game he's playing, but people are tired of that game. So when enough people call it out, Matt switches, because it's like a business decision. It's like, oh, people realize, all right, I'll say this. Like, why do you think he covered the hate speech laws? You think he never knew about it? Guys, he does the same job I do. He pays attention every day. He has to. It's his job. You think they passed him in 2019 and he didn't mention him until 2024 because he doesn't know? No, it's because people realized and said, Matt, I like you, but you're being kind of phony on this topic. So he covered the topic. That's how easy it is. Robert said, people have to realize this is about eliminating privacy, self-identity, succumbing to self-doubt, and chasing what facts versus truth. Sadly, it's been working. Look at all the other anti-free speech in other countries. Thank you, Robert. Yeah, and this is one of the last places that really has a stronghold. To be honest, say what you want about Elon Musk, his Teslas, his little lithium batteries, and his weird brain chips, because I don't agree. I don't like those type of cars anyway. No offense, Elon, I just don't. With that being said, Elon Musk objectively has done more for Republicans and free speech and culture than Donald Trump or anyone did. You could argue that Trump did more just by the 2016 push, but in general, in the last 4 years, no one's they're all fake and they're all just running in circles, making money or doing whatever. Elon, he changed culture by changing X. There's no doubt about it. Him bringing people back, him censoring left, him allowing more discussions has created this new cultural battle. And this is what I haven't fully explained because I've been trying to keep my videos short. But in general, all of these topics that we're talking about right now, these were brought up in 2019. And Ben and Charlie and a lot of these other people, they shut them down. And they were able to shut these conversations down. It wasn't just the left. They shut these conversations down because they're the gatekeepers of this narrative. So now, because Elon opened up the floodgates and they're not popular anymore on this topic, and also the war breaking out has raised more awareness to it and just it's in more discussion. Now, it's not like everyone didn't know this. They tried to push it down. Now it's all flooding to the top and they're screaming anti-Semitism because they can't win this conversation. Seth Dillon's invited on my show. God bless him. It's just like, I don't know what he's talking about, but I know, come on the show. Let's have a chat. I'll be friendly. I'll be nice. I just want to know what you even mean. And I'll say my side of the story. You say yours. Let's see what happens. But this is my read on it. I can't speak for him because I really liked him and I like the Babylon Bee. They've never done anything to me, but I'm a little confused by what he's doing, but no problem. But in general, it's like, I think there's a whole element of this situation that either he doesn't know or he doesn't want to talk about. It's not like, oh, Tucker Carlson said this and the nuclear bomb. It's like these conversations have been basically swept under the rug for 5 years. Now that they're coming up, I don't believe that the people on Seth's side and Ben, I don't think they could win a debate on these topics. So I think that they constantly just use words and demonize questions because they're getting desperate. It's like, how do we stop this? Okay, demonize questions. How do we stop this? Just call everybody anti-Semitic. It's like they can't win a debate with somebody that knows what they're talking about because they're not on the right side of this topic. And that's why I said something about Matt Walsh. It's not because I hate him. It's not a personal thing about something he did. It's literally public information he's posting about him trying to say, how could you pick the side with those people when he wrote articles years ago saying it's not about that side or that side. That's the game they play when you talk about the Israel lobby. They'll say you're on the side with the left and I'm not. I'm just a Republican. And now he's playing the same game of gatekeeper that he used to write articles about. He knows it. That's why it's like, bro, what are you doing? You understand? It's a topic that I'm passionate about. Someone said I would be intimidated to debate anomaly. I mean, I'm an honest guy and I'm a nice guy, but I'm not dumb. People think that intelligence means like you just use big words. Now that's called memorizing a dictionary, and it's good to have a good vocabulary, but I don't think intelligence is like using words. That's not. I mean, obviously talking is using words, but like Ben will just throw out a word that most people have never heard because he has a very good vocabulary, and then people will be like, "Oh, he's the smartest person I've ever heard." Someone said regurgitation. That's the vibe I get with Jordan Peterson. I do think he's one of the greatest debaters when it comes to equality of outcome versus equality of opportunity. I think that Jordan is 10 out of 10 at that. And some of the best content on the internet is Jordan Peterson debating BBC hosts about that. It's fantastic. When it comes to other topics, it does seem like he's one of these academics that has just researched a lot of psychology. And, I find that doing that, lacking spirit and lacking either intelligence or critical thinking, you end up pulling a Sam Harris. You end up being incredibly wrong quite often out of your own over ego and lack of, understanding that just reading psychology papers doesn't necessarily make you intelligent. So, I'm no pushover when it comes to a debate, and I'm not a liar. So the thing is, I'm not pushing an agenda that isn't the truth. And I'm not saying everything I've ever said is right. But the thing is, if someone says something honest that I never thought of, I'm going to agree with it. You understand? This is the difference. What's his name? Dave Smith said this in the interview with me. He said, when that rabbi called him a self-hating Jew because Dave's Jewish, but he's a super honest guy. And he's like, like they're just being so mean to him because he's honest. It's like, how rude is that? It's like, aren't we supposed to have different opinions? But God forbid Dave just says things that they don't want him to say. They're just so nasty to him. But anyway, Dave's a super honest guy, good American, good guy. And he says, I'm playing a different game than some of these people. They're trying to play tennis verbally and get a point. I'm just trying to be honest. So, in a conversation, if you get in a debate with somebody, if it's me and Shapiro, I don't have an agenda. I mean, if you say I have any agenda, it's like, I like America. I'm just trying to do what's right for American humanity at my best. I'm not saying I'm like a savior. It's just like, if he tells the truth, I'll say it's the truth. I'm not playing a game to get something for my group, or I'm not playing a game to do like a forum. If it's true, it's true. If it's false, it's false. If you're right, I'll agree with you. If you're wrong, I'm hard to debate because I'm an honest person. So with Ben, you could find my social media. I've been asking to debate since 2019, and I know that he's very famous and popular. So it's not like I need to debate him or I need the attention. I just feel like Ben Shapiro is a huge hypocrite on the topic of anti-Semitism. And they say, you can't have an opinion of anti-Semitism if you're not Jewish. Don't gaslight us. Here's the thing. You could say that if you're not constantly calling everyone anti-Semitic and having speech laws on your side. Get rid of all the speech laws and stop calling people at every 2 seconds. Then I won't have an opinion. But Dave said this as well in our conversation. Dave Smith, he said, it's like if someone's calling you racist 10,000 times for believing in a border wall, and then you say, I'm not racist, and they say, oh, you can't have a definition because you're not Black or Hispanic. That's the game that they're playing. So it's like, Ben will say that you shouldn't be able to say it or this or that, or you don't know what you're talking about. But it's like, he's not consistent. I could poke holes right through that narrative and dominate him in a debate. But this is what I'm talking about, is he doesn't have debates on this topic with people that are competent and intelligent. If you watch, and I haven't watched the full thing, but PragerU or Dennis Prager got in a debate with Dave Smith. I would guess that Dave Smith dominated that debate. I watched Glenn Greenwald and Megyn Kelly. Glenn Greenwald ate her lunch. She sounds like every television host, and he ate her because Glenn Greenwald's an honest guy. This is what happens in conversations. So I feel like this is someone said, why is Anomaly afraid to talk about white genocide? COVID has been over for 2 years. I mean, I just don't necessarily use the terminology that everybody does, but I talk about it in the way that I want to, or I talk about it how I believe that it's happening. So it's the same with Palestine. I don't call it a genocide. If you do, I'm not going to say you're wrong or you're horrible, but I'm just trying to point out what they're doing. They're killing tens of thousands of people there, and I believe that they want to continue. So if you're hung up over the word, that's on you, but I wouldn't say I'm afraid to. It's just I speak very clearly. I'm not using buzzwords or caving to pressure when this side or that side wants me to condemn or use a certain word. I've been very clear about what I think's happening in America. I've been clear what I think's happening all over the world, in Europe, religiously, racially, So you can think what you want, but appreciate the super chat. Let me see. Someone said the word loses all meaning after a while. I mean, in my opinion, I'm not, and I've never shamed somebody for using that word, but like if everyone's screaming genocide all the time, then yeah, I do think it loses a little value. So I'm not saying, like, if you listen to both sides of the Israel-Palestine, they're both going to say they're being genocided. It could be true. They could both be trying to genocide each other. So I don't criticize it necessarily, but it's like, yeah, I don't know. I don't really even use the word racist or sexist or xenophobic. I just try to say what I'm saying. If I say they're pushing this in the media against these people to subvert you or whatever, then I'm saying it clearly. If you want to label it that way, you can. I'm not going to write an article about you, but appreciate the concern or the scrutiny. I'm not above it, so it's whatever. Let me see. Someone said they both say the other side is trying to kill each other. That's for sure what they're saying. I just have my own way of speaking and communicating, but I'm not above scrutiny. So I'm sure there's some people that think I'm too soft or I should use certain words. And you could think that. I'm not asking for your blind loyalty or trust. And if you want to try to poke me and pressure me or, egg me on to do something that you want me to do, it's fine. I'm not upset. Jay said, today you hit hard, brother. I appreciate the insight and information. You are only repetitive when you're driving home an important point. True journalism is near non-existence. Anomaly is the truth. Thanks, brother. Appreciate you, Jay. Thank you so much for the super chat. And to me, this is someone said you're wishy-washy. If you want to perceive it as that, but I have a method to everything I'm doing too. Like when I talk about certain things and how I talk about it and why I'm doing it to what I think is effective and to the best of my ability. There's other people that do it differently than me that I really appreciate. There's people that say things that I would never say, sometimes things that I totally disagree with, but then other times I'm wildly impressed by them and their bravery, and I don't look down on them for being bolder or like wilder on certain topics. I think everybody kind of plays their role and has a certain communication style. Me, I have a certain style that's true to me. I'm not other people. And I guess for me, I feel like it's more effective when I talk about certain things if I let people know the truth. Like I am mostly white, European, right? I'm Italian, I'm Polish, I'm part Czech, Czechoslovakian, so Czech and Slovakia, and I'm part Puerto Rican. And my Puerto Rican grandma was pretty light skinned. So I know in Puerto Rico, there's black, there's white, there's mixed, like Puerto Rico is an interesting place. It has a fascinating history. But anyway, that's what I am. I'm American. My family came to America. I'm not Israeli. I'm not Palestinian. I'm not Russian. And I wasn't raised with loyalty to any of my countries. I was raised American. That's who I am. With that being said, I'm also, although this is the difference between me and certain people that are like libertarian, they'll say that race doesn't matter, right? You could say that, but certain people actually think it does matter. And if you don't think about it and they're thinking about it, then even if you don't care about it, that's fine. But you can't not analyze what they're doing. This is my issue with a lot of libertarians. They don't ever want to talk about race because they don't care about race, right? They say libertarian, we don't care who you are, guns, free speech, anarchy, whatever. Here's the thing. You can feel that way, and I will never judge you or say that there's something wrong with you. But the world does not operate that way. America doesn't operate that way. There's certain racial groups and religious groups all over the world that they don't think that way at all. So you could feel that way, but you can't act like everyone feels that way. And you can't be afraid to talk about race because then you're just lying to yourself. It's just dishonest. So it's like when I talk about ethnicity, I talk about it in the way that I talk about it. I don't talk about it super harshly. Like certain people want me to. And I'm not saying what you said was harsh or terrible, but like I talk about it, it's true to myself because I have two ideas going on in my head, right? One of them is me personally. I identify, and this is how I truly feel, that there's good people of every race, religion, and country. I don't believe that anyone has a monopoly on morality or good, and I don't think that it's fair to say that there's not. And I've met so many great people of different kinds and in different countries that it's like sometimes you meet a soul from another country that has different skin color that you just connect with so much. And you're like, wow, that's a great person, right? And I truly feel that way, and I'll never back off it, and I'll never succumb to any pressure for anyone trying to say that that's not how it is, because that's how I feel that it is. With that being said, unfortunately, I'm also a pattern noticer. So at the same time that I just told you that, I'm also going to notice crime statistics. I'm also going to notice ownership statistics. I'm also going to notice other ethnicities that don't feel the way I feel. I'm also going to notice other ethnicities that do think that they're better, and then don't allow other ethnicities to say that they're better, which is a crazy dynamic, which is like happening all over the world. So it's like, well, you're doing it, but no one else can do it. That's a little unfair. It's not like I need to do it or I want to do it, but I can point out that you're not being honest about it. So these are all the ways that I feel. If I just came out and just said white, 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 it's just not who I am, and it's not my style. And I don't particularly think that like that's what makes me interesting or important. But at the same time, I don't hate my ancestors, and I don't hate myself, and I don't hate my country. And I obviously notice certain patterns. And, I do think that this is true when it comes to immigration, and when it comes to invasion, and when it comes to demographic shifts that are being purposely pushed. And I never say that they're not. I'm very honest about that. When you travel the world, it's like they're saying that they're pushing diversity. They're pushing diversity on Europe and America. But the thing is, when you go to France or you go to Italy, what makes it what makes it different is when it's itself. If everything turns into a hodgepodge of everything, then nothing is itself anymore. Like I don't go to China and be like, where are all the white people? Well, it's China. I don't fit in China, but it could be cool. It could be cool not to fit in. It could be awesome. It could be terrible. I have no idea. I've never been to China, but it's like, I don't demand that China becomes half white because I'm white. So when you see that happening in America, Europe, and other places, it's like, is this really diversity, or is this just a push to make everything not diverse, make everything the same, get certain people elected? Is there, as other people are alluding to, is there a racial aspect? Is there certain people that don't like Europeans? Is there certain people that don't like Americans or Christians? And, if you research enough, you'll find out that, of course, there are people that love everybody. And then there's people who don't. There's tribal people, and there's, tribal religions, and there's tribal countries. And I never shy away from speaking the truth about it, but I don't personally see the benefit to just talking about it so harshly and aggressively, because I think it then waters down my spirit, my soul, and everybody being able to listen to it and understand that I'm not lying. So other people have different methods to what they're doing. And this is not, and I'm not speaking on everybody, because there are great people that go hard in the paint about certain things, and I don't think they're bad people. But I will say that there are a lot of people sometimes that it's like they're, and this goes for every group, and I'm not just singling out white, because it's like other ethnicities too, but them going hard in the paint is like a, defense mechanism for them trying to basically, feel inferior. So they just kind of like troll and yell and just act rude to everybody, where it's like true strength, in my opinion, doesn't come from that. And I'm not talking about one race, and I'm not saying that everyone's doing that, because it's not true, but I do see that a lot too, where people will be like, do this, do that, do this. And it's like, says the anonymous account on Twitter, like, if you feel so comfortable about saying it, why don't you put your face in and you say it, but you don't. So why are you going to tell me to talk shit that you don't even want to talk? And you're not me. Like I play soccer. I'm a hip hop artist. There's certain things that I enjoy and certain styles that are more natural to me that I'm purposely doing, because that's who I am. If that's who you are, then you do it. But apparently you don't even want to do that. Why is your picture anonymous? Because you don't feel comfortable saying that publicly. So why would I be comfortable saying it if you're not even comfortable saying it? So, You understand? It's like sometimes the people that are trying to pressure you to be wilder, they don't even feel comfortable doing it themselves. And it's like, that's just not, I am who I say I am. I am who I lead on to be here. Like I'm telling you what I think. I'm not the type of person that says race doesn't exist. Like, it clearly exists, and there's different races with different agendas. In the media, you only hear about one in a negative light, but in reality, there's all sorts of racial conflicts all over the world. India isn't having a problem with white supremacy. There's racial and religious dynamics to India, Nigeria, like all over the world, there's different dynamics. I talk about the American dynamic because I know it, and I've never shied away from it. I've gotten called names because of it that aren't true, but it is what it is. I don't shy away from that. I just don't call it that. Even with Palestine, I've said that I think they're killing tens of thousands of people in Palestine. I don't use the word genocide with them. I just don't. I'm not saying it's not. I'm not saying you can't. I just don't. I don't use that word. I'm not saying you can't do it. I'm not going to call you a bad person. Same with on the other side. It's just I don't feel inspired to use that word when it comes to that topic. But I have no problem talking about what it is and what really is going on and the deception on both sides. But I don't know. I'm not saying it because I'm afraid to say it. I just don't feel called to say it. I don't want to exaggerate or overstate something that I'm not 100% aware of. I guess I stayed longer than I wanted to, but whatever. I already did a shorter one. Sleep Fighter said, dude keeps talking about how perfect and right he is most of the time. This is a car wreck. It's amazing how bad faith he is and how he throws necessary insults at people he feels slighted him. All right, Sleep Fighter, since we're here now. What do you think is a bad faith insult by people who slight me? Let me know, since you're saying that. What bad faith insult have I thrown at somebody that's totally horrible? Because I've told people my strategy. I've talked to Matt Walsh. He does a video about it. I've mentioned things to certain people. All of a sudden, they start talking about it. For the first time in 5 years, people are now losing this argument that they've tried to blacklist and sweep under the rug. I've been very clear about that. That's why I'm so passionate about this. It has nothing to do with slights or someone that did this or that. I'm being every time I talk about anybody, I'm very clear with why I'm doing it. And I'm telling you the real reason. If you don't want to believe it, it's on you. But I try to explain it thoroughly because there's logic behind it. But you don't have to agree. It's fine. I just want to see what slight do you think that, because I like a debate. I like a conversation. What, can you give an example? What else is a live stream for? If I'm going to stay longer than I wanted, I'm fine. This is why I'm staying longer. Someone said, anomaly, can you drive a manual transmission? I saw you saying I can't drive a dirt bike either. No, I can't. It's fine. You could make fun of me. I don't care. Someone said, why do you let them rent free in your head, those clowns? Well, I mean, as much as these people are saying this, it's like, oh, he thinks he's perfect, blah, blah, blah. If I really was that self-absorbed, I would be like, oh, they're all haters. They're all clowns. I don't do that. I call a clown. But if someone says something where they're like this and that, I'm giving you the space to do it. If I really thought I was above scrutiny, I would just ignore it and call everyone a troll. I feel like I'm one of the few commentators that do that. Of course, I like what I'm saying. Of course, I think it's true, or else I wouldn't be saying it. Of course, I'm not here to be a phony. So yeah, I do think I'm honest because I think it's one of my strongest skills. I think most people in this space are not really being honest. So I talk about it a lot. But in general, there's so many people that anytime someone disagrees with them, they just call them trolls. No, a troll is someone that's just like talking crazy shit that has nothing to do with anything. A troll is not somebody who's right. You understand? Like there's so many people in the Shapiro world where they're like, oh, look at all these trolls. These are not just all trolls. These are people that are trying to say things that you don't want to say and counter your narrative in a more accurate way. I don't sit and just call everyone a troll. Like, everyone's not a troll. Some people just don't agree with me. Some people don't like my style. Some people have a valid point to make or a not valid point to make, that if I am believing what I'm saying, why would I not be able to let them speak? So that's where it comes from. It's not like feeding the trolls, or it's like, I don't consider everyone that disagrees with me a troll, especially on something like someone said, like, oh, Tucker was wrong about everything in Ukraine. I don't believe that, but if you can provide a video of a reason that Tucker's wrong about everything, then I'll believe you. It's one of those things. It's like, I listen to a lot of things. Even with I've talked about this on the Palestinian and the Zionist side. Of course, the left wingers are not that great to listen to, but in general, there are people making points, that don't go in favor of Israel. And then I listen to the pro-Israel talking points. It's not to say that none can exist and they don't have a right to do this. They have a right to defend themselves, but their arguments have gotten so not convincing. It's like the Ukraine side. I'm not saying Ukraine is horrible or that there's no way that we shouldn't give them money or should give them money. I just haven't been convinced of it. So if you can provide some information that switches my thinking, I'm fine to switch. I have no hard feelings about it. But every time everyone says that, they never seem to be able to follow it up. That's why I ask people to follow it up, because it's like, okay, why is Tucker Carlson wrong about all these things? It's like, they never make any sense, and that's why I think that Ben is resorting to, like, just asking questions. That's his new thing, like saying people who ask too many questions are bad. Here's my disagreement with what he's saying and what Seth Dillon is saying. I'm just going to be clear about it. I do believe there are conspiracy theorists who are doing too much. But my problem is not that they're asking questions. My problem is that they're making definitive statements that are incorrect. If, people were just asking questions, then ask any question. But, if you think Donald Trump is in a secret time machine under Guantanamo Bay, like, that's not really a question. That's it's like a statement, and of course QAnon is doing a lot of questions, but the people that follow QAnon and people that decode QAnon, they're not just asking questions. They're making definitive statements that are completely wrong and then saying, I'm just asking a question. Like, that's not a question at that point. You're just veiling it behind a question. So in my opinion, it's like, just asking a question is not bad at all. But that's what Ben's saying. It's like, you're just asking questions. Conspiracy theorists aren't bad for asking questions. Conspiracy theorists get annoying when they're wrong constantly and they're saying they have definitive evidence of something that they're completely wrong about and they show no evidence. Like, there's plenty of annoying conspiracy theorists, which is what Ben's talking about, but he's not, like, that's not what he's talking about. He's talking about people like Tucker and Candace that are questioning narratives that Ben doesn't want questioned. And if you look in the world, this is just the reality. There's a bunch of countries that you go to prison if you question World War II. You go to jail, okay? Asking questions sends you to prison in multiple different countries. Asking questions gets you banned from multiple countries. David Icke is banned from a lot of countries. He says he can't even go to a lot of countries. Why is David Icke banned? To be honest, I'm not sure, because David Icke asks a lot of questions. I mean, he said a lot of things about everything. All he does is ask questions. He doesn't like Tucker or Candace. He's asking all sorts of questions. So but he can't go to certain countries. Certain people get sent in jail for asking questions. And isn't it interesting that certain people get sent to jail for asking questions about certain topics that Ben doesn't want you asking questions about? So in America, I believe that the real reason that they're so mad at Candace and Tucker, besides all of the things I said about the present day, he's asking questions about World War II and narratives around Japan. If you ask that question, you might ask another question. You might ask a question about this, and questions are hate speech, and not just hate speech in America, but questions are actually jailable offenses in other countries. Like the First Amendment, people don't get it. Like, oh, anomaly just is being jealous. Guys, do you know what? Like, other countries, you're like a slave. Literally, you can't even ask a question. And I'm not saying you have to agree with it, but that's what Ben's doing. He's demonizing a question, and I understand where it's like, yes, certain things people don't want people to question. I get it, but it's like, it's very sneaky. Imagine If Trump took money from a country and you're like, yo, did you take money? And he's like, yo, that question is hate speech. It's like, is it though? No, it's just, that's intelligence. That's journalism. That's curiosity questions. Ben's trying to frame it like he's fighting the bad conspiracy theorists who are just asking questions, when in reality, all the most annoying conspiracy theorists are not asking questions. They're making statements, like making statements that are false and wrong with zero curiosity, just pretending like they know what they're talking about. That's the annoying conspiracy theorists, not the ones who are asking questions. But what I've noticed is like, look how mad they get at you. You ask a question, like, here's a question that would probably bother Ben Shapiro and most of the media. Here's this question. Is Zelensky really worse than Vladimir Putin? Why is that a threat? Is Zelensky worse than Vladimir Putin? Could he be worse? Because they want you to believe that Vladimir Putin's the worst and Zelensky's better than him. So if you made the statement that I think that this president's better than the other president, it's a statement. They could say that it's bad too, but it's like you're making a definitive statement. Asking the question is a fair thing to ask. It's fair, especially if you don't know that much, or if you have a lot of evidence, but not enough to really feel comfortable with making a stance with a foreign leader that you don't really give a crap about. Because it's like, if you make a statement and you say, I like Putin or whatever, it's like, people can be like, oh, you like this, you like that. It's like, I'm American. I don't need to like a foreign leader, and I don't need to agree with everything they do. But if you do, they'll smear you. But making a statement gets you in a lot of trouble. Asking it as a question, whether, you're like Ben, where you really do have an opinion, or you're like a lot of people ask questions, you're truly curious. It's a way to not get as much trouble. But what Ben doesn't realize is like, why are people getting in trouble? Because speech is being censored, because certain opinions, whether they're right or wrong, get you in trouble with your bank account or PayPal or your YouTube channel. So people have resorted, just like I believe they use satire sometimes in communist or dictatorships, they use these loopholes because you don't have the First Amendment anymore. So it's like, if you're going to talk about a topic that's literally almost illegal and gets you kicked off of 15 things, asking a question about it is a safer route. And it's like, whether you are literally asking a question because you don't know, you're not a bad person for asking a question. But also, if you are what Ben thinks everybody is, which I don't think everyone is, if you are that person who's asking a question about something that you think because you're afraid to say it, why are you afraid to say it? Why can't you say it? It's because speech is being policed in America. Speech is being shut down. It's being censored. There's bills passed to say that what you're saying is hate speech. So I know what he's referring to. He's referring to people that are questioning things he doesn't want questions by saying statements that he thinks are hate speech. So then people question out of self-defense in order to be able to even say it. Sometimes on Twitter, I'm literally just asking a question. Other times, I have an opinion, but I'm asking a question, not just because it's good engagement, but also I want to hear what other people think. I know what I think. If I just said what I think all the time, my videos would be boring. There'd be no value to it. The reason I know stuff is because I listen. Sometimes I want to hear what everyone else thinks about it. That's more interesting to me than me just saying my opinion on Twitter. So it's like, I ask questions for multiple different reasons, but none of them are bad or nefarious. And imagine if you said, like, is Trump with the deep state? Is that a bad question? Is Trump with the deep state? That's not a bad question. If you like Trump, you'd say that's a bad question. And Trump supporters say it's hate speech. You're being so hateful when you ask that question. There's a list of questions that is being passed through law mysteriously for the race and religion that Ben is, that he also believes are hate speech. So, like, it's just so obvious to me. It's like, yeah, they asked a question. Maybe they were curious. Maybe they're afraid of saying it because it's now becoming pseudo illegal. Someone said, is Trump the Antichrist? It's not a bad question, but it is a bad question if you work for the Trump administration or you love Trump. If Trump is your idol or he's your favorite person in the world, then asking that question is hate speech. But if you're honest, yeah, whether the answer is yes or no, it's not bad to ask that question. Someone said if he wasn't part of the deep state, he wouldn't be in trial all over the place. It's possible. It's definitely possible. Epstein was put on trial. Ghislaine Maxwell was put on trial. Why did they put Ghislaine Maxwell on trial? Is she fighting the deep state? Trump is obviously a little bit more put on trial, but I don't know. Ghislaine Maxwell is actually being persecuted more than Trump because she's legitimately in prison. Trump is free and raising hundreds of millions of dollars and probably will be the next president. So I don't know if you would agree with my take there, but I think that Ghislaine Maxwell got in more trouble than Trump has gotten in. But that doesn't mean that she's innocent. Bob Menendez is on trial, I think, or whatever. Menendez, I'm not sure. But I don't like with this topic, I don't care what you think. I'm not like, do you think they're persecuting him? Possible. Got to stand up for him if it's wrong. Could it be, it's hard to tell, but I also think this is the problem with a non-moral government and a non-moral society and politicians that are all donor fueled. There is no moral rule. So, for example, if you look at certain bad regimes, whether it's left-wing or right-wing in the past, and certain, let's just say like Bolsheviks or socialists or Marxists or Leninists, it's not like they all get along. It's not like they're all like, oh, let's all be friends and get power. It's not based on God. It's not based on morality. It's not based on righteousness. It's not based on truth. So they always turn on each other. And that's the thing with Trump. It's like, yeah, he's done some good things and some bad things, but this is not a moral country. So even if Trump sold out, it doesn't mean the people he sold out for like him. They don't like him. They don't, there's a lot of people that hate Trump, not necessarily just because of what he did, but what he represents, and they hate it, So I understand what you're saying, and it's definitely a possibility. However, I do think that on one hand, it's possible that they want to do all these things to Trump because, he's not as big of a sellout as everyone else, which seems possible. But also, eventually they go after each other. I don't think that John Fetterman's going after the left because he's so righteous now. That's what other people say. John Fetterman's turned. No, he's a Zionist. Like that's what most Zionists do. They, not all, but it seems to be a trend in politics. They prioritize it over other things that they care about. Like in the Republican Party, they prioritize it over America and the First Amendment, and then pass hate speech laws to say what I just said is anti-Semitic. The left, they care about all these things, but if they're Zionist left-wingers, most of them care about that topic more and say that they're going to switch parties if it continues. So, and then when it comes to like the protesters, it's like, I say that John Fetterman is not our guy. It doesn't mean that the protesters harassing him are our guys. Like I don't have very much in common with these liberal protesters at all. They're wearing pharmaceutical masks. They're delusional. The reason that they feel that way is not the reason that I feel the way that I feel. So, there might be certain parallels on certain topics, sort of, but I don't think it means that they're my guys or whatever. Like Matt Walsh said, yeah, the next time a BLM thing happens, they're going to do what they do. But in general, I think that that's how I view things. I don't think that the left-wing Marxists are loyal to their politicians. I don't think the politicians are loyal to each other. And, I don't think that they're loyal to Trump. No matter how much Trump does for them or doesn't do anything to them, I don't think they care about Trump. I don't think they have his back. I don't think they're going to protect him. I think, he's done too much. He's done too much damage to them in a sense because he said too much truth. He broke the paradigm for a lot of people. And, he's a wild card in some ways, even though he sells out 80-90% of the time. They still hate that because it's like, I've noticed this with certain people in politics too. And just like the way it's all working, I noticed that you can agree or you could like not do certain things, but if you're not completely in the bag, they just hate your guts, So it's like at a certain point, you could say you're pro-Israel. You could say that Israel has a right to defend itself. You can agree with the foreign aid. But the second that you question something, they'll call you anti-Semitic. It's like you could be loyal to the cause completely, but they'll still eventually throw you under the bus. They've done it to Tom Cotton, the media. They've called Trump anti-Semitic. They've called Ted Cruz anti-Semitic. Despite all of the things that they do for Israel, they're super pro-Israel. They all still get called anti-Semitic. So I think there's that dynamic to what I'm talking about. For the guy, I don't know if he's still there and I don't know if he cares, but I just want to be very clear because I don't have any reason not to be. The reason I talked to Ben Shapiro and Matt Walsh and Seth Dillon, and the reason that I'm pushing back on them on Twitter is not, I completely hate you, you're horrible, we don't agree on anything. It's, I believe these topics are super important. There's a lot of, momentum going on right now. And I've already seen results of saying this on Twitter, pushing them a little bit in a logical, reasonable, and honest direction when I believe they're not being honest. And then they end up talking about it, and then they end up covering it. And then, it like when that guy asked me the question in the super chat, I explained myself. He could say Anomaly is a piece of garbage, I don't trust him. Or he could be like, that makes sense, but I still don't agree with you, or I do agree with you. It is what it is, but at least I talked about it, and people can have an opinion either way. That's how I feel about Ben Shapiro. It's like the more he talks, the less I believe him. So it's like, even if you ask people a question or you make a statement, hearing their response is very telling. This is what journalism literally is. It's like, I wish people asked Trump questions, not because I hate him, but he's not really answered any questions about Operation Warp Speed. He hasn't really answered it. Like no journalist has really actually like pressured him. People ask one question. He rambles about how the vaccine saved 100 million lives, and he says nothing. Not a single journalist has said, you really think it saved 100 million lives? Nobody believes that. No one said that. So it's like, it doesn't mean I hate Trump for wanting to pry at him a little bit. That's just basic journalism. And for me, it's like, I'm very firm on why I'm doing this now. Is it something personal with Ben Shapiro? No. Is it something personal with Matt Walsh? No. Is it something personal with Donald Trump? No. Is it something personal with Ron DeSantis? No. They're passing, not the journalists, I'll get to them later, but the politicians, they're passing hate speech laws against the First Amendment. That's my line. That's why I'm saying it. That's why I'm being so pushy, because they're infringing on the First Amendment. It's the same reason I was being pushy during lockdowns and pushy during the vaccine thing. It's because it's insane and it's far beyond the pale and it's anti-American and they're destroying the country, and I'm tired of it, okay? And when the opposition's controlled and they're selling out the First Amendment, I'm going to talk about it. That's why I put the pressure on them in the way that I do, okay? Peacefully, legally, truthfully, just being honest conversations on Twitter. All right, and now the journalists. Ben Shapiro, I believe, is completely dishonest on this topic. He's gatekeeping it. He constantly reframes it and tweets out the laws, and I don't agree with it. And I'd be down to debate or converse, but if not, I'm just going to post all these videos of Ben Shapiro saying that he got lied to by Pfizer and the government, while he now says that asking questions is so crazy because Tucker's smarter and more honest than him, or whatever. Candace would beat him in a debate, whatever. Okay, why do I talk about Matt Walsh? Because he's tweeting things that he knows are deceptive. He knows that when you challenge the Israel lobby, that they try to say you're with them. And Matt Walsh wrote an article and he said, that's ridiculous. I'm not with the left. I'm not with them. It's not us versus them. It's just the reality of this topic. I'm American. And he said Republicans act extremely childish on this topic when it comes to Israel. And it doesn't make sense. He's written that. So when he tweets the exact thing that he made fun of in his article, it's worth talking about. That's why I say it. It's not because I hate Matt Walsh. It's not because he's not right on a lot of stuff. This involves the First Amendment. This involves Republicans selling us out. This is something that I think Matt Walsh knows, and I'm enjoying him getting ratioed every time he gatekeeps it. He's like a little dog on a leash for the Daily Wire, and it's getting cringe, and everybody sees it, and that's why he gets ratioed on all the posts. He's just like the dog. Like, he runs out, and he's like the next layer. Like, obviously, Ben Shapiro says something, like, he'll say something that's like super goofy. Then you'll have Seth Dillon defend it and Jeremy Boring defend it, and everybody laughs at them because they make no sense, and it just gets dumber and dumber. And Matt is one of the only competent people over there. So then it feels like Matt just runs out and then tries to manipulate people in a different way. And it's like, dude, no one's falling for it anymore. I know you know what you're doing because you wrote about it not that long ago, and you were right when you wrote about it. So it wasn't us versus them then, but now it's how could you side with those people? He knows what he's doing, and everyone knows what he's doing. So I understand that some people won't get it because it's not everybody, to be fair. It's just a lot of people, but he's getting ratioed on X every time he does this stuff. And when he gets ratioed, he actually responds and sometimes changes his tune. Matt Walsh is incredibly stubborn. He's dealt with 1 million times more pressure from the LGBT lobby. They've done astronomically insane things to Matt Walsh, and he's never budged on that topic. Why? Because he knows he's right, or he thinks he's right, or whatever you want to perceive it, and he will not budge on that topic because he believes himself. Why, with only a little bit of anomaly pushback, did he make a whole video about the hate speech laws? Because he knows I'm right about that topic, and he knows that he should probably cover it, because if you don't stand up for the First Amendment when your party's selling it out, then what are you standing up for? So, this is an effective method. It's really working. I understand that some people won't understand it. I understand that some people will think I'm being hateful. I understand that some people will hate me for it and think I'm this and think I'm that. I do these live streams so I can explain it thoroughly. Can Seth Dillon come on my show and explain in detail what he thinks as much as I have? Can Ben Shapiro explain why just asking questions makes more sense than the last 30 minutes of this video? I don't think so. So I think that's where the accusations and the labels come from, or the just horrible logic of like, if you question the moon landing, you don't like this country. It's playing on, and this is the thing, and everybody knows it. The Daily Wire, if you go to their comment section, there's still a lot of people that believe Matt Walsh. Read the comments. My uncle was in World War II. They're playing on the heartstrings of emotional boomers. Their audience is going to be more boomered out than young people who don't fall for that stuff. So it's like they're trying to pull on the heartstrings of boomers who have been told this for 50, 60, 70 years. If you don't fight in Vietnam, you hate America. If you question the war, you hate America. And people still believe that to this day. Even people in their 50s and 60s and 70s and 80s, they still believe a lot of these things because that's how they were raised. So of course they fell for the Iraq war. Most people, not all, but a lot, have woke up with that because of the current state of America. So Trump woke people up, Tucker's woke people up, Candace has woke people up. Many other people have woke people up. People like Pat Buchanan were saying this stuff, and Ron Paul were saying this stuff for decades. So there's different times that different people have woken up. But the thing is, Ben and Jeremy, they're basically just desperate. So they're going back to these rehashed talking points. Who says if you don't believe the moon landing, you don't like America? Somebody that's trying to trick boomers who believe the moon landing because they saw it on television in 1969. If you go to most videos or comment section, it's close to a 50-50 split. Like, a lot of people believe the moon landing, a lot of people don't. But it's not like back in the boomer days, it's probably like 95% of people believed it and 5% of people didn't agree with it. But in the modern era, people have cell phones, they have technology, they can watch videos. Not everybody believes the moon landing. So like, Jeremy's trying to pull on the heartstrings of naive Republican boomers who are going to believe all this stuff and think that questioning war narratives means you hate America. But this is the thing. People aren't buying it anymore, especially the younger generation. So as these things continue, the left doesn't believe it. Most of the right doesn't believe it. It's not going to work for that much longer. It's like New York Times and Washington Post and LA Times and CNN, and they had a good run. They still have a lot of power, but it's decreasing every year. And that's going to be them. And Jeremy chose that path. I don't know why. He had Candace Owens. He has, Jordan Peterson, who's very well loved and respected by a lot of people all across the world. He showed what he cares about, and it's fine. But it's like we're going in different directions. We're all, and we'll see how it works out. He's playing this game. He thinks it's going to work. I think he's kind of cornered himself and his company, and it's a damn shame because they're doing a lot of good work, making good documentaries, making children's stuff. It's a shame, but I think he's going the path of like Fox News boomerzoid. And, I think every year it's going to be less and less and less. And now, what type of talent's going to want to work at that company? It's going to be someone who agrees with Jeremy Boring on the moon landing, 9/11, every war, and, Israel. And these are the type of people that are getting ratioed on Twitter all the time. Like, Jordan Peterson's famous, not because of his foreign policy, which Jeremy agrees with, but because of all the work he did before he started talking about foreign policy. If Jordan Peterson just started talking about foreign policy 5 years ago, nobody would like him. Like, that's not his strong suit. His strong suit is all the other stuff. Candace was dope. That not like Matt's now teetering. It's like I think they're cornering themselves, and I think that over time it's a huge business mistake. But who am I to say? I mean, they've made much more money than me, so I'm sure they could care less what I think. But that's what I think. Someone said the moon is just plasmic light. Imagine if I said you hate America because you think that way. That would be crazy. I don't know if it is or not, but I don't think your love for America stems from what you think the moon is, but apparently some do. Why does Anomaly fake Joe Rogan who had RFK but wouldn't have Trump on? Free speech Joe Rogan. My guy, I'm gonna let you stick around if you're not gonna just spam in all caps and do that, but I don't agree with Joe Rogan on everything. I've never claimed to agree with him on everything. I've probably made videos disagreeing with him on some stuff. I've met him. I've talked to him. I don't agree with him on everything. Like, you're asking me like why Joe Rogan didn't have Trump on, but he had RFK on. He doesn't like Trump and he likes RFK. I'm fine with you criticizing that. If you say, Joe Rogan, you had RFK, but you won't have Trump on, you can do that. The truth is, Joe, he does not like, I don't think he likes Trump, or he doesn't want him on for whatever reason. He had RFK on. Criticize it. Say you suck Joe Rogan. I don't care. He's not me. It would be like if you went to Joe Rogan and were like, why did Anomaly do this? It's like, he probably doesn't care or know what I'm doing. So I don't care what you think about Joe Rogan. I don't care if he's your favorite podcaster. I don't care if you think he's the least trustworthy person in America. Why is it? I don't get what do you want me to do? You want me to tell him to have Trump on? Dude, he doesn't listen to me. It's not like we're best friends and I control his freaking podcast. If I controlled his podcast, I'd put myself on as a guest, obviously. But it's like, I don't have that type of leverage. Someone said free speech. But here's the thing. Free speech is not having people on your podcast. Like, I don't think free speech is like, if he has Trump on, it's free speech. If he's really going to be fair, he would have to have on Trump and Biden, or else he's cutting off one side or one conversation. So I don't think free speech is who you have on the podcast. I'm more concerned with the hate speech laws being passed through government, but I'm going to let you stay around, bro, because I'm not afraid of people disagreeing, but you got to make a little more sense. Someone said, I would love to see you debating someone without spurging out. Yeah, I mean, that will happen in my next debate. What are you referring to, me spurging out? Is it the sticks one? Or is that your problem? I mean, I don't know what to tell you, but, to each your own. I don't care what people think about that or any other one. Someone said, Joe Rogan sticks up for Trump and the right more than he ever does Biden and the left. I think so too, but it's just like, I don't know. With Joe, he's an interesting guy. He's a unique podcast, but I think he's had on people that have said more important things than a lot of Republican media has done. And then he's had some takes that I wildly disagree with and guests that I don't like, but I think that's kind of his role. He has on a lot of left wingers, a lot of right wingers, a lot of people I agree with, a lot of people I disagree with. It is what it is. I don't really care that much about it. Like, I don't see it as like, I guess I just don't really expect much from him. He doesn't say he's Republican. He's not, part of our party. He's not like he's just a guy doing it. Someone said Sticks lost against Anomaly. I don't want to talk about that one a lot, but I mean, the whole premise of the conversation was I said that inflation was going to come because of all the money Trump and Republicans printed. And I said, like, even 1% or 5% or 10% or 50%, like a percentage of the inflation came because of all the money Trump printed. And he said it didn't. So I guess I could have handled myself better, but I was surprised because I had assumed that he was like good faith, and maybe that's my fault, but I had assumed he was smart and honest. And like, when he said that, I was like, either he's dumb or he's lying. And then that seemed like an ad hominem because like, oh, he's saying he's dumb. He's saying he's dumb. It's like, dude, no one, like, there's people that said that they thought I was wrong that have hit me up in like the last year or two. And they're like, bro, you won that debate. I thought you lost it at the time, but you were right. You were right. I've had mutual friends that like have literally hit me up, multiple people. I thought you were wrong at the time, but you were right. I'm not, if you can't see that, I don't know what to tell you. Like you don't think printing $7 trillion leads to inflation? Just like, I'm not saying, I was pretty clear even in that podcast. I could have handled myself better, but it's like, I didn't say Biden was awesome or he's not responsible. I said Biden sucks. He's responsible, but Trump and the Republicans and the money printed in 2020, Pelosi, McConnell, Trump, that is part of the inflation. I don't care what part you say, it's part of it. I mean, no matter what was said or I said you're dumb or like, if you can't figure that out, it's like, there's people there's hundreds of thousands of people that watch Rachel Maddow. Like, I can't get through to these people. If you can't see that, then there's nothing I can do for you, because that one was so obvious. But there's still people who, it's whatever. Printing money devalued the dollar, of course. But Trump and Republicans printed some of the money too. That was the whole premise of the debate. And there's people that are like, he lost. But this is like, it's like a fandom. Imagine going to a Taylor Swift community. I mean, I've seen people do it and they're crazy. Like, the last people you want to piss off are Taylor Swift fans. They'll go nuts at you. But in general, it's like going to a Taylor Swift fan and being like, yo, her last album was trash. No matter how good it was or not, they're going to hate you. So it's like Trump, the level of Trump worship is Taylor Swift level. So if you say Trump took $1 million from Pfizer, Trump printed too much money, a Trump Taylor Swift fan will say you're being hateful. You're wrong. That's what that guy was. I don't know if he's still that, but it's like, it's Taylor Swift level political simping, where like you like a guy so much that you'll throw out the basic laws of economics. If people believe that, I don't know what to even tell you. It's just crazy. Someone said the Swifties are coming. I'm not saying her new album is bad. To be fair, I'm not listening to it, and I will not purposely listen to it. Anytime I listen to Taylor Swift, it's going to be involuntary. It's going to be because it played somewhere. So I have no idea how good her album is. But that's someone said Manslave Merce said Anomaly ignores him. He asked him on Night Slave Radio 24 times. He said, LOL. Is that the guy who runs the show with the other guy? Because I think I'm going on it this week. So I don't think I purposely ignored him, but I think I'm going on. Does he have a co-host? I'm pretty sure I'm going on that exact show this week. So he can stop saying I'm ignoring him. I'm going on. I don't know. I didn't know who he was, or I still really am not 100% sure. And I'm not being disrespectful or rude, but their moment is now. So I agreed to go on the show. I like the one guy's tweets. I think he's pretty funny, and it'll be what it'll be. We'll see. That's probably why I didn't answer when he said he wanted me to come on the show. I have no idea. I have no opinion of it. I've never seen clips. I've never listened to the show. It's probably why I didn't answer at first, but I think I'm going on the show. So we'll find out. I don't know. Someone said that it's whatever. Swift fans had memory loss after a concert. There's some severe MK Ultra going on. I don't know what it is, but it's like a worship center. I mean, every concert's kind of like that, but it's like a Swift concert just seems so crazy to me. But no disrespect to Swifties. It's just like watching videos of it. I'm like, what the heck is going on there? But it's whatever. All right, a few more and I'm gonna roll out. I'm gonna keep this. I should probably just leave now, but I've been doing short ones because it's smarter. This is not smart to do them these long, but it's whatever. We'll read a few more. Trump also decreased the fractional banking reserve ratio from 10% to 0% in 2020. That move allows banks to print money. Yeah, I'm sure he did. I've talked about that before, where he switches those stuff around because it's like temporarily good, but long term it's not good. It's hard for me to talk to, I saw Michael Tracy. He pointed out, I don't know who he was talking about, maybe Pasabic and Darren Beatty, but he was talking about like how MAGA MAGA reporters were saying that like Mike Johnson sucks and he's totally different than Trump, basically trying to like gaslight their audience into thinking that Trump also didn't want this passed. Like if Trump was president, he would sign this bill. You understand? Like Trump would sign the bill just like Biden's going to sign the bill. It's not a Trump thing. But that's the thing is like there's certain people that are news analysts and journalists, and there's certain people that are Trump. That, you know, that's just what they do. They're either in his administration or they just obsessed with him. But like, I'm personally not interested in that. Maybe at one point I was, but that's a difference of what you want. Like I'm looking for the truth. I'm looking for things that are helpful and honest. I'm not looking for like fandom of a politician. And it's like certain people that's all they do. That's what they do. You know, there's an audience for that, but I don't I guess maybe you have to do that to win an election or whatever. It's not for me. So I just kind of ignore it for the most part or point out things that are interesting. Do I do my show at certain times? No, I probably should, but it's been good recently. Like my numbers have been great. I've been doing better on YouTube than ever. So I try to just do it quickly as soon as I can when like things come up. This way I can react as fast as possible. And I can't really set a time for that, but I would definitely consider, I mean, it's been 6 years of this, but I would consider that there's a lot of considerations I have. Let's just say if you look at my videos 3 years ago, 4 years ago, they were worse quality. Things were not as good in some ways. Maybe in other ways they were, but I'm always trying to get better. So things are fine now. I have no complaints, but if I'm going to do something again and switch it up, I'm probably going to just try to make it way more legitimate without losing the quality. So we'll see, because I don't know where things are going. Like I saw the changes come from like social media to Facebook, then Twitter, and then YouTube, and like then they do Reels and they do TikTok. Like I see what's going on, but there's always going to be a next thing. Like right now, Reels are doing well, but actually I feel like recently memes are having a comeback, and like, people don't want long form stuff unless it's podcasts. There's a few podcasts really crushing it, but there's also like, people want short and quick content if they're not watching a podcast. And I think there's a over saturation of the market. Like everyone is burnt out from cell phones and social media because everyone's doing it. Everyone wants to start a podcast. So there's going to be a time where things shift again. That's the key to, I think, staying relevant and like keeping your business afloat, is seeing the shift and being ahead of it. And, I see how things are going now, but I don't know what the next move is. Someone said your wave crashed a while back. I mean, you could say that, but my YouTube, I feel like I've got more views on YouTube this last month than I've ever gotten, I think. I mean, I've gotten consistently more views than I think I've literally ever gotten. So that's better than ever. Facebook, I'll post memes and they'll get thousands of shares. It's like, it's not as big as my videos were back in the day on YouTube, on Facebook, but people aren't watching long form stuff. So I don't know. I wouldn't say I would say I'm doing better than ever. It's just, it's not going to be at the same place. Like my Twitter, I'm probably reaching like, I would have to look. I mean, I could look right now. Let's see. In the last 30 days on Twitter, like you don't make as much on Twitter, but it's definitely, let me see, analytics. I'll just read it for you right now. Twitter. That's where everybody is. That's where you get response from people. In the last 21 days, I've reached 31.7 million people. So, I mean, that's not small. 37 million in 28 days. Like I'm bigger than ever on Twitter. I use it more than any other platform. Someone said you have 339 likes right now. Yeah, but I do other platforms. Like if there's certain people that are big on YouTube, but they have no following on Instagram or Twitter, and like nobody cares about. Like I'm doing everything all at once. I'm not stressing over like, oh my gosh, there's only 300 likes on this. Okay, like my last video did better, but it didn't do as good as some other accounts. I don't count like, I see the statistics, but I'm thinking long term. I'm not like, oh, this video didn't have this many likes. It's like that will happen. It's not a big deal. But last super chat, then we're gonna roll out. Raza Ideal Tendencies said, anomaly, it's true. You keep crushing and evolving with the times. Can't wait to see where legendary energies things go. Peace, love, and harmony to all. I appreciate it. Yeah, and I mean things do go in waves, but this guy's just like, your wave crashed, and it's like, not really, but it doesn't bother. Like, think that I don't care. Time will tell, and I know what I'm doing. But for the people who care, just to wrap this one up, I'm doing shorter videos because I think it's smarter strategically and it's easier to share and listen to. But I do like to do longer form ones every now and then because I do want to explain myself more. Not everybody needs to hear it. Not everybody wants to hear it. But I do think it's like transparency. It's like, for example, Thomas Massey, he explains why he votes every way on every bill. He doesn't have to do that. But why does he do it? Because he's letting you know, this is what I'm thinking. I agree with him 99% of the time. But if I don't agree with him, he'll explain why he did it. And this is why he's my favorite politician. Most of the time, he's genuine. But it's like, that's why I did it. This is what I'm thinking. This is why I like McCarthy more than I like, Johnson. It's not because I love McCarthy, but he's doing this and this. When people explain why they're doing things, you can kind of get a sense of like, well, that actually made sense, or that just doing them is one thing. But that's why I do it. Because it's like, if I just start saying things about Seth Dillon and whatever, it's like, oh, you just hate him. People could think that, but if people really want to know, there's not very many people out there that will explain what they're doing. And I don't think there's very many people that will not call everyone trolls. Like, some people are trolls. Not everyone who says Anomaly sucks or Anomaly doesn't do this or that, or why doesn't he talk about this? They're not necessarily a troll. They're a critic. And as much as people want to say I'm self-absorbed, if I was really as self-absorbed as people want to believe, I would just call everyone trolls. I would be like, you're all trolls. Everybody who disagrees with me is a troll. It's not true. Not everyone who disagrees with me is a troll. Most accounts do that because they don't like scrutiny or criticism. And they do that because they don't like people disagreeing with them. So 90% of accounts are like, oh, look at these trolls saying this or that. Maybe they're right. Maybe they're saying something that makes sense. Maybe if I can't explain why I did it and they're saying something, then maybe I'm wrong. I obviously I agree with what I'm saying, or I wouldn't say it, but I don't look at everybody as trolls. Like, the people that look at everyone as trolls, they're usually wrong. Like, they'll go, look at all these Twitter trolls saying hate speech. It's like, or you're wrong. You understand? Like, Jordan Peterson does that all the time. He'll be like, these devils, these demons, these demon trolls, these troll demons, they're calling me Juden Peterstein, demon trolls. It's like, yeah, some people are trolls. Some people are being dicks. Some people are making comedy jokes that you find hateful. And some people are wrong. But also, there's a lot of people in the comment sections that are right, though. Like, they might not be saying it in a way I would say it, or saying it in a way that's nice, but they're not wrong. So it's like, the people that constantly call their critics trolls are usually wrong, and they just spiral out of, like, I'm just honest with it. Like, I'm very transparent. Like, there's people that they'll be like, I'm the greatest player ever, and I'm saying this because I'm humble. Well, that's not really what humble is. Like, I get, yeah, we're all humble, but like, sometimes you're not, though. Sometimes you're feeling yourself. So it's like the people who are like, I won everything because I'm so humble, and this is a humbling moment. Is it really a humbling moment, or is it a non-humbling moment because you just won everything and everybody knows that you're the shit? Like, it's, it's one of those things where it's like, I don't know. It's like, there's a time for everything, but I'm not gonna act like no one can say anything. That's kind of crazy. Appreciate you guys. God bless you. Have a beautiful day. And I'll be back soon. This video did so poorly, according to my buddy here who hates it. It's fine. Hey, what's going on, my friends? Just a few ways to stay in touch and support if you'd like to. The first way is dreamrare.com. We have blue beanies, black beanies, pink hats, other colored hats, freedom versus tyranny shirts, stay blessed long sleeve, God is great long sleeve, and lots of more cool items coming soon. Dreamrare.com. Check out the shop to support. Everything's made in the United States. Handpicked by me. Patreon.com/raretalk. For $5 a month, you can help support me, support the show. If you haven't noticed, unlike other channels, I don't work with very many sponsors, sometimes none at all. And part of the way I'm able to do that is with the dreamrare.com shop and patreon.com/raretalk. So thank you guys for keeping this show free, unimpeded, uninterrupted. I'm forever grateful. My free email list is stayintouchwithme.com. So check the links below in the description, or just type in on any browser, stayintouchwithme.com, all one word. You'll find my email list, put it in there, and it's the least annoying email list you'll ever be on. I barely use it because I don't like getting emailed every day or every week. It's annoying. So I don't do it. Stayintouchwithme.com. It helps me take back some power away from big tech. Telegram.